So, what was the reason for Brexit? Generally, if you ask that question, you will never get the same answer from either a Brexiteer or a Brexit supporter. It is impossible to really it's impossible even to get a coherent answer sometimes, other than the nebulous argument of sovereignty or take back control. Take back control of what? We had control. You were just tricked, and many Brexiteers were tricked and conned into thinking that they had lost control, when no, you hadn't. It was the government was in control a lot. And as we always said, the EU was a convenient excuse for a lot of the ministers to say, see, we can't do that. The EU is blocking us. Oh, only the EU hadn't done that, we could be, a giant of industry. But no, one of the things I've also constantly and love to reiterate on this channel was that our government, and especially the Brexiteers, loved to nationalise success and Europeanise failure, when in many cases it was the EU that led to that success that they were bragging about. And just as I have said, this year is going to be the year where Tories try and justify, their Brexit, and it's a wonderful success. Boris has taken to the air saying that we are going to diverge somehow, and we know what the consequences for that will be. It will be tariffs, which will result in huge job losses and costs to businesses in this country. It will not be good, because there was no plan for Brexit in the first place. The Tories are literally running by the seat of their pants, not knowing what to do now, and and now we get Boris going on hands and knees to businesses, begging, please give me a reason for Brexit. It's generally unbelievable. But before we get into the article, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there's a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link. And thank you very much to the people that do support me that way. So, on with this article. So this comes from the absolutely quite fantastic Yorkshire Bylines. And the title of the article is Johnson pleads with business leaders. Give me a reason for Brexit. So, within 24 hours of the Yorkshire Bylines posting an article about the government's lack of a coherent strategy or even a single hint of what the EU legislation might be scrapped using our post-Brexit freedom, it appears that the Prime Minister has been reduced to pleading with business leaders to come up with ideas to help him justify Brexit. It's unbelievable. It always goes to show you there was no plan. This idea that Boris had an oven-ready deal, Boris had no oven-ready deal. It was just the withdrawal agreements. And then he's literally just gone, I don't know, just do a deal. And I think he drunk the Brexit Kool-Aid, like all the Brexiteers were saying, have been saying for years, that the EU is the master of the last-minute deal, and don't worry, if we hold on to the very last minute, we'll get this sweetheart of a deal. And the deal we have is anything but a sweetheart deal. And the Brexiteers and Brexit supporters are kidding themselves if they think this is the Brexit deal that they always wanted and dreamed of. So, after multiple failed government drives to identify burdensome red tape, Johnson appears to be subcontracting the issue to the private sector. In a conference call on Wednesday, reported by Bloomberg, Boris Johnson asked business leaders to help him decide which regulations should be ripped up now the UK has completed its divorce from the European Union. Remember, we've already had Daniel Hannan come out in 6 days. It took him come out and basically say we want to get rid of worker protection and consumer rights, along with a raft of all other things that for years we have taken for granted. And I have said it is very likely in not only probably this year but next year, we are going to have to fight battles for basic rights and protections which we have taken for granted for so long. Because the Tories just want to, they're free market fundamentalists. As far as they are concerned, the government should have no role whatsoever in regulating the economy or what businesses do. And if you think that the businesses can be trusted to do their best interests in what's good for the people and consumers, think again. There's very few businesses that actually think like that. And, we will just see the worst forms of capitalism come out of the woodwork. And it is going to be an absolute nightmare. That is why I've said you need to learn and read up on what the term disaster capitalism is. Because I think we're going to be hearing that term quite a bit. So anyway, the article continues. This is an amazing admission. It has been widely reported that most industries, particularly chemicals, automotive and aviation, but others too, have called for Britain to remain a member of EU agencies that govern their sectors in Europe. Most companies don't want to diverge at all, knowing that this will be a far greater burden than any of the present regulation imposes. And divergence can only add to the massive extra bureaucracy which the Brexit trade deal saddles British industry with, through extra border formalities and customs red tape. And we've said before, that costs, and that cost has got to be added to somewhere, and that will be to the end consumer. And if you're, as many British businesses do, export almost practically to Europe, you break down the numbers, and when you look by individual industries, many industries overwhelmingly ship to Europe. And, that's going to have a massive knock-on effect. That is going to make British businesses over there become less competitive. Less competitive means less income from Europe. Less income from Europe means that business has to make some serious business decisions about its future. Either A, stay in the UK and reduce in size, or move to Europe. And that is literally, when you strip away any political inclinations and boil it down to a simple business decision, a lot of businesses are just going to say, what's the point of staying here? And some will accept that they have to get smaller. And that will mean job losses. That will be an absolute disaster. It will be. And I really, really do worry what was going to happen to a lot of people out there when they lose their jobs, because it's not going to be nice for them, especially in this current climate. And I can tell you now, as someone who is currently looking for a job, it ain't good out there. It ain't good out there at all. So, anyway, it continues. It's confirmation that Johnson really doesn't understand businesses, nor has any more idea now about what plans to do with our expensively purchased sovereignty that he did in February of 2016 when he leapt on the Brexit bandwagon. Bloomberg says that Johnson made the offer during the call with around 250 corporate leaders, according to the people with knowledge of the matter. He asked what red tape could be cut to make life easier for Britain's companies to operate after Brexit. I assume the answer was stunned silence. Meanwhile, the Brexiteers' favourite guru, Daniel Hannan, newly elevated to the peerage by Boris Johnson, has his own ideas about which regulations need to be dumped. And again, we've already covered this before, but it just goes to show you the madness that is going on, and what they always were, what I've been telling you all these years, what the Tories are free market fundamentalists. So anyway, writing for the Conservative Home website, Hanan wants to, quote, boost our economy by scrapping whole swathes of regulations. He said, there are regulatory barriers, everything from planning restrictions that inflate the cost of housing to staff ratio rules that give us the most expensive childcare in Europe. I could fill a long article that is just by one simply listing them. Consider that just one subsection of EU laws we can now get rid of: the Temporary Workers Directive, the REACH Directive, the End-of-Life Vehicles Directive, the Detroit Suit rules, and the other regulations that hurt London's fine arts market, the Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive, and chunks of the MDIF2, GDPR, and bans on GM. And we've gone all over those. Why it would be bad to get rid of those. So head back to that video of Daniel Hanan, and we cover just why some of those would be awful to lose. I mean, one of those rules would be literally temporary workers could essentially find themselves not in employment, but in constant unsurety about where their job is, who they're working for, what hours they are going to get, because no guarantee will be put in place how much hours they can work. The knock-on effect this is going to have is going to be huge. And I told you so. I told you so for so long about what these people intended to do. But now is the time to fight back against them. Now is the time to get Labour into power, and then to get back into the EU, and also to get proportional representation. So, like I said before many times, we're going to have to fight so many battles. So many. And so many Brexit supporters, I think when some of these rights go or generally get challenged, I think there's going to be two types of them. One type saying, yeah, we should get rid of them, not realising the consequences of what they're asking for because they think it's to do with the evil EU. And the other type going, oh my God, what did I do? You know, I didn't vote for Brexit for this. You know, that phrase of, this isn't the Brexit we voted for, one day, going to be up there, mark my words, sooner or later it will be there. So, anyway, the article continues. So the End-of-Life Vehicle Directive, by the way, is largely about the design and manufacture of vehicles to make them easier to dispose of when they're scrapped. If we abandon that rule, we cut ourselves off from the EU market. So it's not clear how it would boost anything, and certainly not in the short term. All his suggestions would come at the cost if the EU perceived them as giving us an advantage in any way. The wait to discover where the divergences are to come still goes on. And we are waiting on what, Boris plans to diverge on. I'll tell you now, it's not going to be good. I'll tell you now, it's not going to be good at all. And we're going to have huge fights in our hands. And what we really, really need to do is we need these businesses to speak out and go, whoa, what are you doing? That would be, because that would send a shockwave through the Tory benches. If businesses started to speak out, that would have a lot of power, because then moderate Tories would then be able to stand back up and say, whoa, what's going on? Pro-business Tories would stand back up, which many of the pro-EU Tories were, pro-business, well, depends what type, I suppose, well, they were pro-business, British or international, I suppose you could make the distinction, but we'll just call them pro-business for now. Will stand up and say, whoa, businesses are saying not to do this. And here we are at an awful junction. We've just got to unfortunately wait and see what they decide to do. And it's really, really worrying. Because as you can tell, Boris hasn't got a clue. But the free market fundamentalists almost certainly do. So, with that said, please remember to hit that like and share button on your way out. And of course, down below there's a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link. And thank you very much to the people that do support me that way. And as always, we will see you next time.